going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of JaAR. JaAR, for those of you that may be new, stands for Joe
and Amy
Review, and this is our weekly show where we review the Magic stories. And this week we are here to continue our review of the Innistrad Crimson Vow stories, and as we do, we alternate main story, side story, etc. And so we are here for side story number 3, which is Survivors by Reinhardt Suarez. My quick review at the top of this one is, I think this was my favorite, this is so far my favorite Crimson Vow side story. I really enjoyed it. I've got a lot of things that I want to talk about with it that might sound like that they're issues that I have with it, but they're really more like discussion points and things like that. But I think the story itself was very good, albeit very long. It took a long time to get through this one. So you need to have the time, but otherwise I enjoyed it and I encourage people to go check it out for themselves.
I feel similarly. It was very long, so it takes a little bit to get through it, but the story is good. Whether or not I have a ton to say about it in this video, I guess remains to be seen.
We'll find out.
But it was good nonetheless.
Yeah, I hesitate to be like, oh, this will probably be a short one, because if you all have the benefit of looking at the timestamp down below and seeing how long it is.
And every time we say that, it's always way longer than we thought.
And then I look like a jackass. I'm like, oh, this will be a short one. And like, they're like, you spoke for 50 minutes. Like, yeah, I know. I'm sorry. So, okay. Anyway.
Yeah.
So that's our quick reviews at the top. If you did not get a chance to read the story for yourself, or if you read it a long time ago and want to give yourself a refresher, I've tried to remove as many barriers as possible, so the top link in the description down below will take you to this story so that you can read it for yourself. And then, of course, we would love it if you would come back here and join us. Join in the discussion in the comments down below. We would love to hear from you, whether you agree with some things that we have to say, disagree, or you feel like there's something that we should have talked about that we didn't. We would love it if you would bring it up down below, and we can then talk about it.
Yeah.
So, and also, before we get started, before we jump into the full review itself, firstly, if you are not going to be watching any more of our content between now and then, and you celebrate Christmas, since this is coming out on Christmas Eve, Merry Christmas to you and yours.
Yes.
If we missed it when you were celebrating it, Happy Hanukkah to you and yours, Happy Kwanzaa, and or just Happy New Year, Happy holiday season in general to each and every one of you. We here at Geek for All enjoy that you're here. Thank you so much. And just as a reminder, welcome to the channel. Please feel free to subscribe and ring that bell. It'll get you notifications whenever any of our videos come out, whenever we go live. We are live on stream every Monday and Friday usually, but this month, December 2021, it is Monday and Thursday. And no matter when it is 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time right here on this channel. Mondays is MTG Arena, and Thursdays or Fridays, depending on when you're listening to this, is random video games in general. This month we are playing through X-Men Legends for the PlayStation 2. It's been an interesting ride so far. And the day that this video comes out, we will be live this evening, or tonight, playing through that, or continuing our playthrough of that. So definitely tune back in. We would love to see you, and jump in chat and say hi. Also check out our other channels, linked down in the description box below. We've got Video Games for All has 3 uploads coming out every week, no matter what. And what's...
Gluten Free for All is putting out a video every month so far.
Yes. So
we'll see how long I keep that up for. But I'm trying.
I think you've got great plans. I think you've got great stuff coming up.
Yeah, I've got things in the works.
Yeah. So I encourage people to check it out, subscribe, and then as always with anything that we do at all, if you know of people who would enjoy it but aren't aware of it, send them that information. Please. Share a video with them, share the link to the actual channel with them, especially Gluten Free for All. If you know someone in your life who is gluten-free either by choice or by need, send them those videos. I think Amy's doing an incredible job at being able to deal with a plight that you've had to deal with for so many years, that like, you know, trying to find good foods for the restrictions that you're put under. So
yeah, I mean, we thought about it when I was trying to make the intro for all the videos, and realized that I've been gluten-free for over a decade.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably getting closer to 15 years at this point.
Yeah, probably. So definitely go check that stuff out. We really appreciate it. So, onto the full review itself. Amy mentioned not really knowing exactly if she had a lot to say about this. And I'm hoping that the things that I want to talk about will spur you into having things to say. Because a lot of
usually what I count on.
a lot of the notes that I was writing just felt like they were just summarization, which I hate. I just don't appreciate that. Because I'm not going to sit here and summarize the story for you. Either you're interested in reading the story or you're interested in watching a summary. And there are plenty of YouTube channels that do story summaries, and shout outs to them. Feel free to go enjoy those and watch those for yourselves. But I'd like to actually have,
we're not going to insult your intelligence by telling you what happened in a story that we assume you've already read.
Right. So, but I did want to talk. There's so many things and they're so scattered. So I apologize if I'm jumping all over the place with it. I noted that the coin that was offered from Vitas to Taurens, Vitas being the purveyor of the town, the mayor or owner of the town, offering to Taurens or forcing him to take a job and then being like, but I'll pay you. Here's 25 gold up front. When you're done, 25 more. Little does Taurens know that, Vitas assumes that he will never complete this task, and presumably then Vitas will go in and get his 25 gold back and try to do this again to other people in the future. But,
right, because why not?
Right.
I guess that's the type of person you are.
Right. But the gold is pristine gold stamped with Avacyn's symbol. So again, because of what I've been doing, if you have not been watching these videos, I've been trying to keep track of all the Avacyn symbolism that is appearing. And this was the first time, and I believe only time it was mentioned in this story. Obviously, Cathars in general were mentioned here. But the symbol was only mentioned in regard to the coin, and I didn't think it mattered in any capacity. It doesn't come back up again, it doesn't transfer back to hope in some way. There was a lot of symbolism in this story, and I just didn't feel like the coins did it at all.
It seemed like it was hinting at something that it then didn't explain that it was hinting at.
I'm not so sure. I mean, it mentioned that it had her symbol, and again, that's kind of where it began and ended. Right. So I was
waiting for an explanation, and that didn't come.
Right, which it didn't necessarily need to be there. It's just that it had been there with every other story where Avacyn's symbol came up. It meant hope. It meant lost hope, or keep holding on to hope, or something relating to hope. Avacyn, angel of hope, and it just didn't come up, and I was a little surprised. But
if you saw symbolism there that we missed,
definitely.
Please write it in the comments.
As always.
Yeah, definitely always, especially for symbolism of all the literary devices that we talk about in these videos. Symbolism, at least to me, I think is probably one of the most important ones.
Right.
So if you see a symbolism when reading these stories that we don't talk about in the video, please leave it in the comments, because it would really mean a lot to us to be privy to that information that we missed.
Right. And the only thing that I wrote it here to maybe tie it in, maybe not, is that shortly after seeing the money is when Taurens is oh, but how much does that boy owe in rent? I want to pay the boy's rent with some of this money that you're giving me.
Right.
Maybe but that, as we continue reading this story, that's just who Taurens is, and he's remembering back to his own brother, so it's a whole thing, but so I don't think it relates in that way, but as Amy said, if you see it differently, let me know.
Yeah.
So
that's a point.
Yeah. I liked to talk about the through lines that I keep looking through for all these stories. This was a side story that I feel again showed us how the eternal night is affecting the regular denizens, right? We talked about it with the last one, now we're talking about it here again, because Alexander talked about the fact that he needed money. He was, missing the rent or whatever, and he said to Taurens, he said, my family runs a smithy, and if it's nighttime, eternally, then there's no sun. And with no sun, there's no crops. And with no crops...
Right, and as he's reading that, I'm going, what does that have to do with a smithy?
Right.
But keep going.
Yes, sorry. And so that's fine. So with no crops, there's no need for farming equipment. And so as a smithy, you would make farming equipment, or you would repair broken farming equipment, or both, depending on who you're servicing. That's not available.
Right.
So, he mentions that he has some side job for Vitas or whatever, like who cares? But that was an interesting point to me, is that, there are industries, so to speak, that are in Innistrad that are now destitute. They're not a thing anymore. If you don't have the benefit of the sunlight, you can't grow crops. So you're probably going to have a food shortage, which is what the Soren side of the story is dealing with as well, but with vampires having food of humans, not the other way around.
Well, if humans are dying off because they don't have food, then vampires are going to die off because they're not going to have food. So that's the whole point.
It adds to it, but that's not. But I mean, it's just, I think that there's so much trouble in the humans that eventually they're just all going to be wiped out. That's kind of the issue, right? So, but yeah, this is another one. If you don't have food, you're not going to have a way to live. Right. And crops are food, and they can't grow without sunlight, and,
But I thought it was interesting because I feel like in Eternal Night, maybe the typical denizens would be commissioning weapons more than they would be commissioning farming equipment. So I feel like that might kind of compensate for it a little bit for the smithy. Obviously there are plenty of other industries that would be hurting because of this, but I feel like a smithy maybe wouldn't as much, because a person who just farms usually would probably go to the smithy and say, okay, normally I'd be asking you to repair my farming equipment, but right now I'm asking you to make me a sword and a shield because I need to fight all these creatures who are now attacking me all the time because it's Eternal Night. That's just where my mind kind of went, and I was like, oh, okay. This is like their kind of like roundabout, maybe not super well thought out way of saying like industries are hurting because of this situation that, nobody has fixed.
Well, that doesn't sound like anything that's happening in the real world at all, so.
No. Nope. Definitely not.
Something that bothered me when you talk about characterization, right? Tauren's is a new character. To my knowledge, unless I'm wrong, and you can always correct me, I don't believe Tauren's has ever existed before in Magic Story, either in card version with like flavor text or in the story itself. I believe he is an entirely brand new legendary card and or character in the stories. And as a card, he is Tauren's Fist of the Angels, which I want to talk about because the story blatantly has his brother Elamon saying to him, I'm surprised that you became a Cathar because you were never a man of faith. And he himself was like, yeah, I didn't want to become a Cathar, but Odric let me do that instead of sending me to jail. So how is he the Fist of the Angels then? He's like a Cathar, I guess. So he's like working for the church, arguably, but he also like abandons his post during the travails and the whole Emrakul situation. So where is he the Fist of the Angels again? He like even makes a deal with a demon. So where, like, and I guess he does it to save Alexander, but like that's one kid.
Right.
So like where is he a Fist of the Angels?
Think that a Fist of the Angels would be like a really devout person.
Yeah.
Cathar or cleric or whomever.
Right.
Paladin. Somebody who would actually sort of embody the will of the angels, as well as might.
Yeah, and seeing his card art previously, he looked badass as hell, right? He's like charging forward and he's got the mace out like this, and he's called the Fist of the Angels. And then the story starts and he's a snake oil salesman.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I mean, let's hold off, let's read the story and find out what they're going to actually tell us.
Nothing.
Not much. Like, we'll get into, like, his relationship with Alexander and him meeting Eruth and I just don't buy it. I'm like, it felt...
You don't buy the snake oil?
Yeah. I don't. I get it. I see through the ruse. But
Right.
it's like all so confusing to me. Because it's like his card, and again, you can chalk this up to me talking about this again, because I talked about it last week with art not making sense with the description of the story.
And the week before that, or if it wasn't the week before that, it was 2 weeks prior.
So, like, maybe that's the situation again, but it's like, he's the Fist of the Angels, but he's a Cathar that doesn't want to be a Cathar, and he's a snake oil salesman, so he's a con artist, because he's just in it for the money, which is what a con artist is. Like, they don't care about the result of their actions, they just need money. And so they do what they do to con people so that they can get money. And screw the consequences or screw the morality of it, I need money. And so me, it's all about me.
Right, or maybe it's not screw those things, but it's I don't have a choice. What else am I capable of doing to make this money?
Which
and
is...
they feel that the answer to that is nothing.
Which is when he was picking pockets and stuff when he was younger as well.
Right.
Kind of the same idea that it was like, you know, I just need to make money because my family is struggling and my father is drinking all of our money away and whatever. But like, it just, it's...
Both of those things are certainly common afflictions for people nowadays.
Yes.
In any area of the world, realistically.
Yeah. And so our, like, at least in story, justifiable reasons to do those things, not to say that it's okay or not, but just, it's justifiable in that, okay, there's at least a reason, right? He's not just like, I feel like robbing people today. Like, he's doing it because.
Right.
So, okay, but how does that relate to Fist of the Angels? How does that relate to, like, any of this stuff? It feels like the name of the card, Tauren's Fist of the Angels, has nothing to do with his character at all, whatsoever. It just doesn't. He's a Cathar that doesn't want to be a Cathar. He doesn't have faith, but he's a Fist of the Angels, but he's also a snake oil salesman, but maybe he's doing it to feed his family. It like boggled my mind, because I'm like, how am I supposed to like keep all these plates in the air in my brain of like, okay, so he's this, but he's also this, and I'm supposed to care about him, but he's also a scumbag. But is he not a scumbag? Like, is there a reason? Is it okay that he's conning all these people? Because like...
And then on top of it, you're supposed to twirl all the plates until the following story comes out and then talks about him again.
Oh no, I'm sure we won't see him again.
To give you the answers that you're looking for.
No.
Because if it doesn't, then the name of that card shouldn't exist. It shouldn't be anything like that. And if it does, then it would explain away the name of the card maybe, but then that would be 2 stories about him. that just seems unnecessary.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not. You know, maybe we'll come to find in the following story that that this all made perfect sense, and that the next story is going to finish off his arc and really take him from a snake oil salesman to the Fist of the Angels.
No, I would be...
but...
I would be shocked beyond all shock if that actually happens. This was very much like, it felt like a beginning and an end, like it's done now. You know, we've seen a lot of stories like that where it's like, I'll get you next time is like how the story ends, and then you don't ever see them again because until maybe we come back to Innistrad. But again, as I've said, like, I don't put any stock these days into when we come back to Innistrad again, however many years from now, we'll find out, because at that point we could be 7 story teams later and they won't give a damn or have any chance to. So you cannot at this point get me to be like, oh, but Joe, when we come back, like, nope, not a chance.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, when this story is done, this character I will never see again. And if I do, awesome. That's great. I'll be happy about it. But if I don't, I'm not surprised, because that's just how it's going to be. So, okay. With that being said, Torrens, as this like snake oil salesman, or there was the one of the flashbacks he's talking about like trafficking goods, right? And stuff that is banned. What's the word that I'm thinking of? What when something is they said it in the story and I didn't write it down. But when something is not able to be sold, there's a ban on it. There's a whatever. People know what I'm talking about. I tried to see if you could help, but it's fine.
I don't know what you're referring to.
It's fine. If like it's illegal to sell. And one of the things that he says that he's waiting for, he lists a bunch of things. And he says, bezoars, talismans, rare herbs, and other things. So I was like, you asked, I think, right, what a bezor is, or a bezor. I don't even know how to pronounce bezor. So I was like, I'm not sure. Let me look it up. So talismans makes perfect sense to traffic in and sell. Rare herbs makes perfect sense to traffic in and sell. Bezors, I looked it up.
There's, I guess, a significance to them?
No. They are, quote, solid masses of indigestible material that accumulates in your digestive tract, sometimes causing a blockage.
Which, one, is disgusting. Two, how did you harvest said bezor?
Especially back then. These days, I'm sure that's absolutely something that could easily be like surgically removed from someone in as safe a manner as possible because we have modern medicine and good surgical practices and etc. But yes, back then, you just got a hacksaw that you're going to take this thing out of someone's stomach with, like...
I assumed it was the kind of thing, like the person died from it, and then you like...
And it could be from...
Take it out of their dead body?
It could be from livestock, maybe. Maybe it's something that doesn't just afflict humans.
Okay, that
right?
makes sense.
And so, like, you just have a dead animal and you're like, okay, let's take the bezor out because it has value? What does it have value for?
Well, I mean, when you're a snake oil salesman, you can give it significance that it doesn't have. You can assign it some kind of a magical power or whatever.
But that was... So, yes... But that was back, this was the flashback. And the flashback has him with talismans, rare herbs, and other things that were banned to be sold. So like, why would you ban selling digestive tract blockages?
Well, that's why I'm saying, like, maybe the way in which they were harvested is unsavory enough that they would do that. But for them not to explain that seems a bit silly.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, what? Why?
Like, did they cut that out of the story because they thought it was too gross, or like it made the story too long? Because the story already was too long. Yeah, the story is quite long. Okay. Then we have the introduction of Eruth, the Tormented Prophet. Or maybe it could be sold, like, as poison. Like, as a way to, like, okay, figure out how to break this up and incorporate it into food so that when somebody eats it, they end up, like, it gives them a blockage and then they end up, like, dying from it. Or
none of that is explained to us in any... Like, it's like, this is... I looked it up and I was like... That is the weirdest one. That's the weirdest thing to give a name to. I mean, I get it from like the medical community. It makes sense because you need to be able to diagnose, and so if you want to shorten, I lost it. If you want to shorten solid mass of indigestible material that accumulates in your digestive tract, sometimes causing a blockage, yes, it makes sense that you can just say, "Oh, you have a bezor," right, or a bezor. I get it. But at the same time, why is it in this story? Why? Not in that context. It sure doesn't.
No. And I don't know. Man, maybe it has another meaning.
It must.
We like missed.
It must. But I wasn't. I searched bezor or bezor definition. I spelled it exactly the same way. I checked because I did it twice, and both times it came up with that. So maybe there's a different definition. If you know what it is, let me know. And then
put it in the comments, guys.
and if so, then I'm sorry that I told you what I told you, but that's what I came up with, and I was very confused. So,
well,
okay.
how many times have I looked things up for these videos and then said, well, here's this crazy thing that I researched. Sorry, it's not actually like what we need it to be, but that's all I was able to find out.
It's fine. Then let's talk about, I mentioned Eruth. Let's talk about Eruth, the Tormented Prophet. She was here. She sure was. I don't know why she was here as opposed to anywhere else. Like, she was like, there's a demon downstairs and he took your guy. Okay? You couldn't have just, like, had him walk through the door and not see her, but just see the demon instead and have the same conversation? Because it's not like Ruth added much to that. What I did appreciate was Amy and I both were like, this dark lady, who does that sound like to you? Because she appeared to Eruth and, like, took over Eruth, like, right as the world was going to hell, around the time of the travails, maybe after somebody read, like, a scroll and, like, put somebody else in a moon. Yeah. Is that what everybody else thinks too? Because it's just blatantly that, right? And, like, it also seems like it's very similar to what happened with Nissa when the Eldrazi were trapped on Zendikar before they were released, and Nissa's, like, getting these visions from Emrakul, of Emrakul, and so now Eruth is getting these images and dreams and stuff thanks to the Dark Lady, which is probably Emrakul. So, like, it really seems like that's the direction they're pointing us in.
But again, they don't say any of that.
Well, they don't. Well, that one I somewhat appreciated, but again,
they don't get to it.
No, but they don't. Like I was saying, this I liked because it was just a hint of it, and then I guess when we come back to Innistrad at some point in the future, that'll definitely be a thread that gets pulled on.
No, it won't.
Maybe. But again, like I said, not something you can count on, especially once they took the story of the Raven Man with Liliana and just were like, what Raven Man? What are you referring to? I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. There's no Raven Man. What Raven Man could... Nobody's ever talked about that person before or cared about who he might be, or I don't know who you're referring to. Sorry, can't help you. Like, oh, okay. It wasn't ever part of your story before, so I guess we don't need a resolution on it. Thanks. Maybe they still will. I guess. We're kind of going back to Dominaria at the end of this year, but, like, one's for a flashback set to the Brothers' War.
Yeah.
Then the other one is... So, anyway, it's possible.
Anything to do with that.
It's possible. Well, who knows? Okay.
Hopefully they do a better job with the story than that, but...
So...
Make the Brothers' War about the Raven Man.
So, I loved and really appreciated that Tauren's is from Hanweir. And the fact that there were references made that I'm sure if people were unfamiliar with the Shadows over Innistrad Eldritch Moon stories or cards, that they might be a little confused. So I might be able to do this. I said I was going to do this a few weeks ago and I almost forgot, but I did actually do it. This is Hanweir the Writhing Township. Take a look, enjoy it. I don't know if they'll be able to see us motioning anymore, but that's Hanweir the Writhing Township. That is what happened to Hanweir. So we can take that away. So that's what happened to Hanweir. And we know that, but Tauren's doesn't know that. Because he just shows up and Hanweir is gone.
Where'd this shit go?
There's a big hole and that's it. So I liked that, he's like talking to other people and they're saying like, oh, the town disappeared, or I don't know what happened, or, he's walking through the muck and it's really gross, and then he comes across a kid who tells him that it just walked away. Because it, as you saw, it did. It's a writhing township. It definitely walked away.
It had leggy things, and then it left.
Yes. And I loved the moment, legit sad moment in this story, where he finally reads the letter from his brother that says, hey, we need you to come home. Mom's sick. She hasn't seen you. It'll help her to see you. I miss you. You should come home. Let me, send me a letter letting me know when you're on your way. And he's standing in a place where he knows his house used to be, and it's now a big hole, and he just looks down into the hole and he says, I'm here. That is sad as hell. It's so sad. Super well done. Really, I loved that moment. I really did. Because it's super sad. The end of the story comes. And Alexander is no longer possessed by Umbris. And Umbris leaves, and when Umbris leaves, he returns all memories to all of the people that he took them from over the years. One of which is the memory of Alexander's dead sister, who Alexander didn't even remember existed at all, and then didn't remember that she died. So Umbris leaving returns to him the memory of her, and then the memory of her death. Yeah. And so he is very distraught, of course, and he collapses and he's upset, and Torrens lays with him or sits with him and holds him and just keeps saying, I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. I guess I didn't love that correlation, personally. Maybe that's just me. I didn't feel like it was the first moment where he says, I'm here, back in Hanweir, or where Hanweir was so good. It was so impactful. And now he's here for Alexander. It didn't have the same impact to me, personally.
Well, and not only that, but it has a very different meaning, right? The first one was, I'm here, but it's clearly too late. And the second one didn't really mean that.
So that's why. Because he was saying it to whom? Torrens was saying it to whom in the flashback? His brother. Now he's saying it to another young man, but it's not his brother, but it's a young man who is mourning the loss of a sibling.
Yeah.
And Torrens, when saying I'm here, was essentially mourning the loss of a sibling. So I get it. I get what the attempt was. It's just that the first time it was used was so impactful, and the last time it was used was not. So I would have...
That was a little bit of a walk. I mean, I didn't really get that until you just explained it.
Okay. And that's fair.
Now that you did, it's like, okay, I get it. But like you said, it doesn't really work.
See, and that's super interesting too, because I was thinking to myself, okay, and I've talked about this before on JaAR, especially when we did Gisa and Geralf stories, but I am an only child. So I don't have a sibling relationship to look to with regard to this type of a story where there's that connection. So I thought to myself, maybe it's just me, right? Maybe I'm like, oh, that's not impactful at all. Meanwhile, people with siblings are like, oh my God, I love it. But I didn't
either, but I'm not close to my siblings anymore. So maybe somebody who is.
Let us know. Definitely let us know. If you were like, oh yeah, no, I felt it. And I have siblings, I'm close with them, whatever. That'd be great. We'd appreciate that. Because it missed the mark a little bit for me.
Yeah. It really missed the mark for me, because I needed to have you explain it just then for me to even make that connection all the way.
And would it have been better if the story ended with the flashback of him saying, I'm here, in front of the empty Hanweir hole? I think that might have been better.
Right.
because then you get the more impactful I'm here after the less impactful one.
Right.
And you end it with like, oh my God, that's so sad. Like maybe that's not the angle that you wanted to end it on, but I mean, that was definitely the most emotionally impactful moment in the entire story. Like,
Yeah.
to me at least. Like, it was just so good. And if you're ending it with the line, I'm here, and that's what you ended your flashback with earlier, end it with that flashback. Like, that would have been so much better, I think.
Right.
Maybe that's just me. I thought that was great. And then the only other thing I wanted to talk about is that this story is called Survivors. I think that they tried to put in, when Umbrus was like trying to corrupt Torrens a bit and say to him like, why did you live?
Right.
Your family died. If you had only gotten there sooner, you would have been able to save them, because they definitely would have listened to you. You know, if it were me, I would have convinced my family to leave. It would have never been a problem at all.
Exactly.
And it's like, first of all, that's entirely BS. There's no goddamn way. But also...
And like, you're gonna expect your town to grow legs and walk away. Like,
Yeah,
you're
exactly,
just not
exactly.
gonna expect that.
Exactly. So like, it was like, okay, I get it, but also... So, I think they tried to like, put in the fact that Eruth, Alexander, and Torrens were all survivors. Again,
I guess.
I guess. So, I liked the story a lot. I liked the entirety of it. But it's funny. I feel like I'm like hedging a bit, because it's like, I liked it, but it was too long. And I thought it had good emotion, but then they tried to follow it up and it didn't work. And I liked this, but then there was that. You know what I mean? Right. So like, maybe that means I didn't like it. I thought I enjoyed it by the time it was over.
Yeah.
But
I liked it too, but yes, there was...
It left me scratching my head a couple times. Like,
yeah, there were things that they touched on that needed more than they were given.
I didn't write them down, but there were two like genuinely funny comedic moments in the story as well, where we like read it and we were like, oh wow, we like laughed, we thought it was funny. Which I feel like we haven't had like decent comedic moments in the stories in a bit.
Right.
Right? Maybe mainly because these are supposed to be more horror leaning, so like that makes a bit more sense. But I mean, even horror movies have like some bit of levity sometimes. But regardless, that's fine. And then a lot of these side stories feel like, to me, that they had been kind of contained horror movies or stories or whatever. And this one wasn't really traditionally horror based until that moment where Eruth was like, oh yeah, my partner, the Dark Lady. She's standing right behind you.
Right. And then he looks back.
And there's nothing there. But like Amy and I were both like, when I read that, I like looked over at Amy and she was like, oh God. She's right behind you.
Or you're schizophrenic maybe. I don't know.
Well, and then we find out, through...
And then we're like, well, maybe this is Emrakul.
Yeah. I'm going with it's Emrakul. Like, what the hell else is it? It's Emrakul. Yeah. So, but regardless, like that was the moment where it was like, ooh, like give yourself a little bit of pause. Yeah. You're like, oh God, okay. So,
but yeah, it was like, I don't know, it was like so awkward when he like realized that she was like shackled, and then he was like, oh, this whole town is like a cult, and I'm like, oh, this is like getting weird. Like I don't know how I feel about this right now.
Yeah. So those are our opinions on the story, and to say that we're conflicted, I think, would be an understatement.
Yeah.
But I'd love to know people's thoughts. Like, did you love this story? Did you hate this story? Or are you somewhere in the middle? Because I guess we're conflicted at best.
With that, I really would have wanted to know, like, is she seeing things, or is somebody actually there and not visible to most people, or what does this really mean? Mm-hmm. Because you know, I mentioned that maybe she has schizophrenia. Like, if there's some kind of a mental affliction that she has, I would have loved to talk about that in this episode, but no, we can't because it was just kind of like this weird thing that then got dismissed.
Yeah. So, anyway, we will be back next week with more Crimson Vow story reviews. There's like possibly a story up already for Neon Dynasty. Like, I saw it and I clicked on it, but it's like, it says it was posted in Magic Story, but it wasn't.
Is it?
It's very weird. So we'll see what we can do about that. That one's even longer than this one was.
Yeah.
So, you know, we'll have to find like 2 days to like do all that stuff to get it together. But we'll figure out what's going on. I don't want to be reviewing two at the same time. So we will see how this shakes out, because it seemed like the stories were gonna start being released for Neon Dynasty like right as we were gonna be finishing with these, which is like perfect timing. But now I'm not so sure. We will see.
How many more stories of Crimson Vow are there? Oh, I didn't realize there were so many still.
Yeah, because we have main story 4, side story 4, main story 5, side story 5.
Okay.
So, yeah, we'll be here for another month. But as I somewhat mentioned at the top, but is true, none of the holidays, Christmas, New Year's, anything will be stopping us. We will be here for every stream, albeit Fridays pushed to Thursdays, but we'll be here for every stream. We'll be here for every upload, barring something crazy happening where we don't get a chance to film. But like, we have plans to keep up with every upload that is supposed to be happening on all of our channels. So definitely stay tuned to them. We really appreciate you all being here, and we hope that you continue to have a happy and safe and healthy holiday season. And into the new year as well. That is super important. That's for you and yours, family and friends. So, yeah, that is going to be the end of this particular episode. I think that, you know, being able to sit down and talk about a story where I say I liked it a lot and then kind of complain about it, or like talk about problems that I had with it, yet still say that I think I liked it, I think is a great way for me to join all of you in showing off our...
Hashtag Vorthos Pride.
It may have been a little weird, but you know, it's the holidays. We're all a little weird.
Well, and that's the thing too, like, these stories being alongside the holidays feels weird as well.
Well, that's because we're doing it this way, right? They weren't released now,
That's
right? They
true.
were released during like October, November time period.
Yeah,
so
which makes more sense.
yeah. So anyway, we would love to hear your thoughts as always on anything that we talked about today or anything that we didn't talk about today that you feel that we should have. Down in the comments below, that is what it is for. Join us on stream Mondays for MTG Arena, Thursdays this month, and then Fridays for X-Men Legends and whatever is to come after it. We really appreciate each and every one of you being here. Thank you so very much. And we will keep going into next week and into 2022. So we will see you there, hopefully, and thank you so much for sticking it out with us.
Yeah.
But for now, from us here at the Geek for All family of channels, I have been Joe.
And I'm Amy.
And as we always say, in whichever video of ours you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.